Today we're going to make a chair out of concrete and carbon fiber. A friend of mine gave me a bunch of these carbon fiber rods. He works for a golf club company and these had misprints on them, but are still structurally sound. So I decided to use them for the back of a chair. I still need a lot more outdoor furniture for the container house, so I decided to make the base out of concrete. And so that process begins by making a melamine mold. I ripped some 17-inch wide strips of melamine with my circular saw, and then cut these strips to length with my circular saw blade set at an angle. These angled pieces will just give me a little bit more flexibility in selecting the geometry of the chair's base. I'm designing the shape of the base as I assemble the mold, so I just start by taking some scrap pieces of plywood and melamine and gluing them to the sides of the form. I use a speed square to make sure everything's at a nice right angle, and then I glued this first piece down to a melamine base plate. From here I can glue support pieces onto additional pieces of melamine and start to really play with the geometry until I have a shape that I think looks good and will be comfortable to sit on. The shape is starting to come together and I'm locking down all the pieces to the base plate with hot glue. The exception being the top piece, which I'm going to need to drill holes in so that the carbon fiber rods can pass through. I marked the locations for the holes, and then I took some pieces of rigid insulation foam and cut those, because what I want to happen is I'm going to stick these carbon fiber rods into the form, and I want a way to anchor the ends and to reduce the weight of the chair base, and that's what the foam's going to do. I drilled holes just slightly larger than the rods through the melamine, and then used those holes as guides to drill holes through the top piece of foam. I then hot glued pieces of foam together, leaving the piece with the holes on it on top. I was now ready to finish assembling the mold, and again, this just involves more hot glue. I really rely on hot glue on these concrete pours, and to be on the safe side, I just go over all the outside corners and seams and make sure there's a bead of glue around everything. I used the carbon fiber rods to help place the piece of foam inside the mold. Once I had it in the right position, I just pulled it away a little bit and then glued it into place. I was starting to get worried about the weight of this base, and I had some additional foam, so I just made some additional blocks and then glued those into the mold where they'll be hidden by the concrete. I then removed the carbon fiber rods and sealed up the inside of the mold with silicone caulk. I was pretty sloppy with the caulk because I was planning on grinding and shaping the concrete base with an angle grinder later. While I was waiting for the silicone to cure, I started painting the carbon fiber rods. Whenever I'm painting synthetic materials like plastics or carbon fiber, I really like using the Rustoleum 2X line of spray paint. It just does really good on these type of synthetic materials. Once the Rustoleum had cured, I was ready to start putting the mold together and pour the concrete. The taper on the rods was just a little bit bigger than what I had expected, so the fit was on the tight side, but I just took my drill and reamed out the holes a little bit bigger so that everything would fit. I'm going to use Quikrete Countertop mix in white for the base of the chair. Now, one of these bags got left outside in the rain and had a little bit of water damage, and I knew from seeing my friend Ben Paik at Woby Design's experiments with concrete that this water damage mix would come out sort of an unusual texture and not be as strong. Now, I don't really need the base to be super strong because there's just so much mass and it's all just resting on the ground. So I thought I would mix in this damaged bag into the middle to create a kind of a nice texture differential on the base. I mixed up the concrete and slowly shoveled it into the mold, every once in a while pushing and vibrating it down to try to get rid of some of the bigger air bubbles. I ended up using 4 80-pound bags of countertop mix, and in retrospect, I probably should have made the base just a little bit narrower and or used more foam inside of it, just to reduce the amount of concrete. When the mold was all the way full, I just screeded the top and then used a putty knife to just smooth the open side down just a little bit. After letting the concrete cure for 2 days, I just broke away the hot glued in supports and started to remove the mold. This is all really easy with the exception of the piece that has the carbon fiber rods going through it. So what I did here was I just used my drill to kind of weaken the melamine right around the rods, and I just drilled enough holes so that I could break it away and then pull the two pieces apart. Boom, and there you can see that texture differential that I was talking about. That middle kind of rough area is where I used the damaged concrete. I put a diamond blade on my angle grinder and then started to really shape the base, and I did this just by removing about 2 inches around each of the outside edges of this weird geometric concrete shape. It's actually quite easy to shape concrete this way. It just creates a lot of dust, which is why I wore my RZ mask. This was kind of fun, and it made me really think about doing some sort of stone or concrete power carving in the future. Once the dust had settled, I then gave the whole chair a couple coats of Rustoleum 2X in flat white. And to add a little bit of color, I switched up to a yellow and did an ombre fade from the bottom up, and then got this nice teal and did an ombre fade on the ends of the carbon fiber rods. I've been using Rustoleum for a while now. They have the best collection of colors out there, and they have different formulations for different materials. So for example, for synthetics, I really like the 2X, and then for steel, I like their protective enamels. And I really like how the white part of the chair kind of disappears against the background, and it just looks like there's these two floating clouds of misty color. The carbon fiber rods have a bit of flex to them and make the chair quite comfortable. Now, I still have a lot more of these carbon fiber rods, so hit me up in the comments sections with any ideas of what you think I should make out of them. Thanks for watching, and thank you Rustoleum for sponsoring this video. Check out some of our other projects, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Oh, and here's Modern Build strength testing one of the rods. And he hurt his hands by snapping them together when the rod broke. Alright, that's it. Bye.